In the last 5 years, I've generated more than $150 million in online sales for the brand that I co-founded named True Earth, all while having 3 kids, one of which was born during the launch of the brand itself. I'm a father, I'm a husband, and I'm a co-founder. And in this video, I'm going to show you how I personally juggle being the co-founder of an 8-figure brand with my personal life and being present with my family. In this video, we're going to talk about a few different things, and they're primarily from my experience. First off being whether it's possible to be present with both your business and your family. I'm going to talk about the different struggles that I faced while we were scaling our business and how that affected family time and vice versa, how it affected the business. I'm going to talk about how I was able to do all of this while also, I don't want to say suffering, but also having ADHD, so having executive function challenges. And then finally, I want to talk about ways that I was able to incorporate some downtime into my life so that I felt balanced, so that I was able to best show up as a business owner as well as a parent. So let's jump into it. So the first question, the first thing I want to talk about is really whether it's possible to be present both in your business and when you're at home with your family. And I know there's like a really popular culture of like hustle 10x, work 60, 80 hours a week, grind yourself to the core, to the bone, whatever you want to call it. And I've done that in the past. Like I've had my business during the day and I worked late at night. And when my first couple of kids were born, I was doing that. I was working during the day and I was longshoring at night until 1:30 in the morning and burning the candle at both ends. And there's a time and a place for it, but it's really tough to do when you have a family. So when you're scaling a business, there's gonna, especially in the beginning when you're wearing a million different hats, you're going to be called upon to do a lot of different things. And like in the beginning, when we first launched True Earth, I was the media buyer. I was the website designer. I was the copywriter. I was doing the customer service for a period of time. I was helping determine how many cases of product we should ship to Amazon. I was labeling the packages. I was printing them. I was creating SOPs. There was a point where I was also creating packaging. I was organizing. I was the creative director. I was organizing all of the creative production. And when you're doing that, chances are you're probably also working with agencies, and not all of them are going to line up with your schedule. And to be honest, in the early days, there were definitely times where I was coming home and I was trying to play with my kids, but the dopamine of being in this like crazy growth mode was so overwhelming that any message came in from anybody in the business and I was instantly distracted. I did learn over time some fantastic methods for actually coping with this, and I'll share some of the things that I did in order to make this work for me. So one of the really important things was I wound up getting an executive assistant to help organize my schedule, my calendar, my time. When we first started, it was back-to-back meetings all the time. It was absolute crazy until we kind of figured out a system that worked for me. I understand not everybody's going to be able to go and get an executive assistant, but you can try to organize your dates, your day and your time in a way that an executive assistant normally would. But the biggest thing is like really time blocking. For the most part, I would try to fit all of my schedule, all of my high payoff activities, all of my meetings within my 9 to 5 time frame. Sometimes it would go 9 to 6, sometimes it would be 8 to 6 or 7 a.m. till 6 or 7 a.m. till 5, whatever it was. And there'd be certain times where I would pick back up after my kids went to bed. But when I came home at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whatever time I came home, my kids usually had activities, whether it was sports or whatever. I would do my absolute best to be present. And one of the big challenges that I always found was I always have my phone in my pocket, and your phone's like a gateway drug to doing more business. So the first thing that I did was I shut down notifications for anything tied to the business, like notifications from like Stripe or Shopify or anything that were like dopamine hits that were going to distract me from what I was doing. That was the first thing I did. And then it's funny, I think I got a new phone and I accidentally got logged out of Stripe, which is our core means to communicate. And at first I was like, oh man, I gotta get Stripe back on Slack back on my phone. And I noticed a massive transformation, especially because I have ADHD. So every single time somebody makes a request for me that I notice, if I don't write it down, it's kind of like opening another tab in your browser with important information in it, except for it's in my brain. So I would look at these messages late at night and I wouldn't have a notepad with me or whatever. And that new problem or that new request that just came to me would now be spinning in my head and I'd be thinking about it. And like, if I was playing with my kids, I would not be present. I'd be off in La La Land. So what I did is I eliminated Slack from my phone. And then sometimes after my kids went to bed at like 9 or 10, sometimes I'd hop back on my computer and just look at everything that was going on. If there were any requests from me on Slack, I'd write them down. I'd put them in my like to-do list so that I knew what I needed to accomplish the next day. And if I didn't do it at night, first thing in the morning, I would just take 10, 15 minutes, go through all the messages, write down everything that needed to be done, see if anything may impact my high payoff activities for the day, and then I would address them then. These, just the fact that I blocked off my evenings to be with my family and then reduced the inputs, the distractions that were able to get at me when I was in that time, absolutely changed the level of presence that I could be when I was hanging out with him. There's a caveat to that. You're like, well, what if there's an emergency? So certain people have my phone number and I know that if I get a text message or a phone call that I'm answering it, and the people that have my phone number know if it's business related to only contact me if it can't wait until the morning. So basically we've got a break glass and an emergency button there. But those things really changed my ability to be present. And you're probably thinking, oh, I have so much stuff to do, Ryan. Like, how am I going to get it done in between 9 and 5 p.m.? Well, there's something called Parkinsons Law, and that's work will occupy the time which you allow it to. So if you block your high payoff activities during the day when you are most creative, I know everybody's different in that time, but blocking those activities in your most creative time or your most highest output is what has allowed me to perform better. And using deadlines is extremely important since I have ADHD. But if I have a deadline and it's a high payoff activity, I know that I can get it done way quicker than I think, provided it's my sole focus. So that's how from the very high level, that was how I was able to be kind of present with my family while growing. But there's also struggles that happen while you're scaling, and not every night's going to be perfect. Sometimes there's going to be things that get in the way. There's times where I had to go down and, help at a warehouse, or there were times where I had to, go pick something up, or something needed to be done immediately. And there's some crazy deadline that needed to be hit, and I'd have to take pause. There's a couple times where I had to travel unexpectedly, and there's times where I actually brought my family with me, which can be fun too. I've actually done it a couple of times, and where they understand that there's going to be a few days where I'm pretty occupied wherever we're going, and then my wife and kids will go play at the pool or something at the hotel, and then we'll take another couple extra days at the back end of the trip, and we'll go explore. And obviously it can get expensive, but that's like a really fantastic way if you have to travel unexpectedly, or if you're traveling a lot where you can include your family. But in terms of struggles, I think like the biggest issue that I personally have is like dealing with when I'm overwhelmed, and is, you know, if I'm overwhelmed, not letting that carry over into my own family time. And I'll be the first to admit it, that it has plenty of times in the past. Typically what happens is my fuse gets shorter. If I'm stressed out, you have to try to remember that these are little people. The things that are setting you off typically, they're not necessarily that big of a deal. They're just being kids. They want your attention. They want to see you. They don't care about any of the stuff that you're trying to get. They just want your time. And, sometimes when my fuse has gotten short, I've yelled. I've probably yelled way too much. And, a couple hours later, I see them sleeping, and I look at them and I'm like, man, I feel like a bit of an ass. This still periodically happens to this day, and I'm trying to be better with it. But my family as a whole, because of the way that I've structured my time, we've struggled less with me not being present, and more so with how I handle my stress outside of the business situations. But I'm lucky because this isn't my first business. So a lot of these lessons, especially tied to how I manage my time and whatnot, I learned before this business. So I had a lot of preparation to kind of be in the right mindset and know what's important. There was actually a time we were at Harrison Hot Springs, which is a pretty cool little resort here, and I was in the hot spring pool with my oldest son, and I can remember, like, this is probably the last time that he's not going to need me to travel around this pool. It's not super deep, but like, it was going to be the last time. And he even said, he's like, next time we come here, I'm not going to need to float on your back. And I had this aha moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I need to be here. I need to enjoy these moments. I need to be in this moment. And I really enjoyed the next 5 minutes, just like hanging out with him, putting him under the waterfall. But he was right. The next time we came back there, he was able to walk around. He was able to swim by himself. And if you don't enjoy those little moments, like I wasn't necessarily always enjoying them, then they pass by pretty quick and you can't get them back. And I'm lucky that I realized this before it was too late. And, now I try to remind myself of it all the time, that these moments are going to pass. You may be busy in the moment. Things might be crazy. You might not get a lot of downtime, but somebody told me this, actually it was at that same resort. The days are long and the years are short. And it's been 10 years since my first kid was born, and it's gone incredibly quickly. So I try to make sure that I'm the best dad I can be. I'm not always the best dad, but I try to be, and I try to be present. I try to enjoy all of their activities that they're doing, support them, give them the ability to do what they can. And when I'm at work during the day, I do my best to be as effective as possible so that I'm able to not have to think about the things that I need to do when it's my downtime with my kids. The next thing I wanted to talk about was really like how I was able to figure all this stuff out and how I was able to do it with ADHD. I don't usually try to think of ADHD as like a disability. Generally speaking, it's been kind of my creative superpower. It's one of the things that's allowed me to like get really deep into a lot of different topics and become a fairly good marketer, fairly good online personality, whatever you want to call it. But part of having ADHD is poor executive function. So this generally means like I'm not great with time management. I'm not great with planning. I'm not great with following up on stuff. Sometimes I suck at just getting things over the finish line. And before I was diagnosed with ADHD, I had taken this test called the Kolbe A index test. And I believe my score was 6.923, which is basically means I'm a 6 out of 10 for fact finding, so information gathering. I'm a 9 for quick start. I might mix that up with the numbers, but I'm a 9 for quick start. I'm a 2 for follow through, and I'm a 3 for implementer. So I'm telling you this is I'm fantastic at getting things moving. It's probably why I've been able to start so many different businesses, but I am not exceptional at continuing the ball rolling. So I'm good at creating standard operating procedures. I'm not great at continuing to execute them over time. So what I found in the past, I hired somebody a few years ago and they had a similar pattern to me. And I found that we just didn't have a ton of structure because we both liked to get things going, but nobody liked to run the ball across the finish line. So I started screening everybody that I hired after I found out I had ADHD. I started screening everybody I hired with this Kolbe A index test. And I think it costs $50. I'd highly recommend it if you haven't done it. It's a great insights into how you operate and how to find somebody to complement you. But I started hiring people that complemented my scores. So since I'm a 9 quick start, I don't need somebody else that's got a crazy quick start score. I need somebody else who has great follow through and possibly great implementer skills. This was really the foundation of how I hired moving forward after I found out I had ADHD. And just about every person, probably 80% of the people in our marketing department had lower quick start skills, but strong, really strong follow through and decent fact finding skills. So how I managed to kind of overcome this stuff was, I got an executive assistant. Maria's fantastic, who helped me organize my schedule. So that relieved a lot of stress for me. She helped organize things that were incoming that I didn't necessarily see. But everybody else in the business was optimized for structure. And since I'm the most chaotic person in the business, I'm able to quick start things and hand them off, and nobody's in conflict because the other people on the team are generally happy being able to run the ball across the line, and I'm happy with getting the ball rolling. So we have this symbiotic relationship. And if you have ADHD, I highly recommend using this every single time you hire because it's amazing. But that was like really the big cheat code outside of like how I structure my day, which I've already talked about. And that's kind of from a hiring perspective. But then coming home at the end of the day, some other things that people with ADHD generally struggle with is like object permanence, which is like if you don't see something in front of you, you kind of forget it exists. And this can even go for like relationships and stuff. Or people you haven't talked to for a little while. But like I could walk over a piece of spaghetti on the floor and not even see it. And my wife would get upset with me because she thinks I'm being an asshole. When in fact, I just didn't notice that there was a spaghetti on the ground because I was thinking about something else. So one thing that I've struggled with, and I don't do this as much anymore, but I found that like, if I left work at 5 o'clock, my brain would still be racing around the problems that I needed to solve. What I did find is that as somebody with ADHD, I need to change what I'm working on. So if I went and had a really hard workout, got my blood pumping at the gym after I was done working, it's kind of like meditation where it would clear all the thoughts from my mind. I would get some exercise in, I would feel fantastic. And then I'd go home and I'd be able to just kind of like hang out without thinking about these trailing thoughts. For me, it was like, really, how do I stop thinking about the things I was working on all day, or the things that are problems I'm gonna have to deal with tomorrow, and have a state change? And for me, for a long time, it was working out. Now I've gotten pretty good at just like relaxing, taking some deep breaths, trying to think about something else before I end my day, because I've actually shifted my workouts and stuff now to the morning. And I'll tell you why I've done that. So giving myself downtime. I'm gonna be the first to admit, I'm telling you all these things about how you can do things better, and it's obviously a spectrum. I'm still not perfect on how I give myself downtime, and I'm pretty bad about it. I neglect myself on the social aspect quite a bit. But since my kids are a little bit older now and they're playing sports, so sports are kind of a cheat code, provided you find some parents in the sport world that have similar interests to you, or you get along with. So I'll take my kids to sports at night, usually for a couple hours every night, and there's at least a few people that I can talk with. I'm not going out and hanging out with my friends that much because I do have kids, but the people who my kids play sports with, I've become friends with their parents. So from a social side of things, I've really benefited from getting to chit chat and hang out with these people on a daily basis. That was something that I struggled with a lot, was where do I get my social time from? Because I'm a pretty social guy. That caused, without the social side, I definitely would get a little bit of depression. Not crazy depression, but I would, if I didn't socialize for a long enough period, I would start to feel off. I also wound up really neglecting my exercise for a number of years here. Like, I kept getting hurt, like little stupid nagging injuries, and I just didn't have a lot of time because I would work all day and then I would hang out with my kids. And then at 10 o'clock at night, I'd be exhausted. I'd sit on the couch and I'd watch Netflix for a bit, fall asleep, wake up at 1 a.m, crawl to bed, repeat the cycle. And for me, if I don't exercise, I don't eat healthy. It's just, I cannot juggle the two together unless they're in harmony. So I made excuses. And then I got my blood work back recently, and I was like, well, there's a few things that I need to change to make sure that I'm going to be not only present for my family, but around long enough to see them grow up and do awesome things. And I just couldn't jam working out in at the end of the day. I was always too tired. So luckily this year, my oldest son started practicing hockey at 6 a.m. and at the rec center, and there's obviously a gym there. So I started working out at the gym while he was practicing, which translated into me, being in a situation where I needed to fix some of my health markers. It was like, okay, we are going to start waking up at like 5:30, even though we absolutely hate it, and we're going to go to the gym. And I've always been like the anti 5 a.m. guy. I just always thought that the early morning routines were stupid. Like, you know what? I take it back. I probably trashed it before. I take it back. It's awesome. My morning, this is basically turned into a good chunk of my personal time, is I get up, I make a coffee, like Americano, I hop in my truck, I put on sports radio, listen to some Canucks. Like the guys talk about the Canucks for like 15 minutes. I sit in my truck, I drink my coffee for 15 minutes till 6:15 in the morning. I go to the gym, I get some cardio, I lift a bit of weights, I might stretch for a few minutes. I'm out of there in about an hour. I come home, have a shower, and what's crazy that I noticed was when I went and got exercise in the morning, it obviously led to better eating habits, but it made me so much more focused, which is important for somebody who has ADHD, but it bled over throughout my whole entire day. I was like at least 2 to 3 times more focused and more productive during the workday than I was before. And I was so much happier. Like, I can't stress enough how much happier and more confident I was feeling. You know, at the end of the day, if I work out in the morning, I work, and then I hang out with my kids at the end of the night. It doesn't leave me a lot of extra free time. I would try to do something that I like sometimes at the end of the day, whether it's like trying to play the guitar a little bit, or I don't know. Those are pretty much the only things that I do these days. Sometimes maybe go play spare on the hockey team in a beer league, but finding that time for me in the morning, even if I didn't go and work out, like, it's pretty crazy how silent and quiet everything is in the morning, and whatever you want to do, you can focus on without any distractions. And that's really it. You know, the only other thing that I found really worked for downtime was, as a parent and a partner, you know, both people are taking care of the kids. Both people are, need certain things to feel sane. And it's tough sometimes to just have something sprung on you as a partner. Oh, I'm going to go out and do this thing right now, and with 10 minutes notice. So making sure that, oh, hey, I'm probably going to go hang out with somebody on Saturday night. Making sure that my wife had 3 or 4 days notice, or a week's notice. So, when that day came, whether it's trying to make sure that dinner's ready early, or pajamas are out, or whatever, that it's less stress on them, so that I can get out and take a little bit better care of myself. And, self-care is incredibly important. It's like when you're on an airplane and they tell you, if the air masks drop down, make sure you get yours on first before you put on somebody else's, because it's much easier to take care of other people when you're in a good spot already. Hope you like that video. I have this other awesome video that you should check out if you haven't already, and it's all about how I almost quit before I launched True Earth. You can check it out here. See you in the next video.